Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Last night saw the second debate in the leadership contest for the SNP, and it was magnificent television yet again. If you remember, the first one descended into farce with all three candidates slagging each other off and pointing out all their failures, and thus the failures of the SNP government over the last 15 years. Not something you want repeated. You'd think the handlers would be on their best guard. You'd say that the people running the show would say, for God's sake, don't attack each other. Build a consensus. Become friends again. Show that you can work in unison and, push forward for the greater good of the party. That's what you would have thought. But that's not what happened. Because once again, the school ground took over and it was calling each other names, pointing out their failures again, and saying that I won't work with you and I'm not going to sit in your government if you become leader. I mean, these people are grown-ups. They're behaving like 8-year-olds. And it can only be good for Scotland. And there was one scene particularly where Hamza Yousaf was saying about not wanting to serve under Kate Forbes. But I think if Kate Forbes becomes leader, Hamza won't have the chance. I think we'll deal with that when we get to it. Now, this was on Channel 4, and unfortunately, because of Channel 4's, if we say, strict copywriting, I can't show any of the debate. It wasn't like the live feed from the last one, which was open and you could show. This one, because it was directly on there, they'll claim copyright on it, so I can't really show you any of that. But what I can do is we can look at the papers, which is perfectly acceptable. We can do the review there, and we will do that. But what I will put is a link to the Channel 4 show. So if you want to watch it, go and watch it. And I recommend that you do. Because once more, you're getting these three people. Well, you got the two candidates and the also ran. But they were interrupting each other. They were saying that you couldn't do this and I'm not going to do this. And it was just amazing that they basically hadn't stuck to the script. Because I can guarantee the people who, important people running all this within the SNP would have said, for God's sake, stop destroying the party. No, guys, carry on. You're doing a great job. Anyway, we'll go straight into the papers and have a look at that. But as I say, I'll put the link down below. But anyway, here's the papers. Right, so they were reporting on last night's debate, and they're saying SNP at war as leadership rivals clash again, with Hamza Yousaf suggesting he could refuse to serve under social conservative Kate Forbes if she ditches Nicola Sturgeon's progressive agenda. Well, Kate Forbes has already said she's reversing a lot of what Nicola Forbes pushed. So it means that Yousaf will not serve under Forbes. And Forbes is very, very likely. It's just between those two. And it really is like, a cigarette paper between the two of them. It's so thin. But they're both way ahead, of course, of Ash Regan. But the SNP leadership rivals Hamza Yousaf and Kate Forbes last night continued their increasingly bitter war of words in a second live TV debate. Both Yousaf, the Scottish Health Secretary, and Forbes, the Scottish Finance Secretary, took fresh swipes at each other in the race to become a new SNP leader. The pair are the frontrunners in the contest to become Nicola Sturgeon's successor as the party leader and First Minister, with third candidate Ash Regan seen as an outsider. In fact, she is so far outside, she has got zero chance whatsoever. But they, as it was asked right at the end there, who would she suggest that people who backed her would go on to back, and she refused to name anyone. I think that refusal to name may even alienate her somewhat slightly further. We'll see when the results are announced in 2 weeks' time, but it will be interesting to see how far she trails. Mr Yousaf also sniped that the Tories were rooting for Miss Forbes to win and put pressure on the Finance Secretary over her stance on termination buffer zones. He called himself, now here's the thing, because he did mention her religion and then described himself as a Muslim Christian. And as far as I'm aware, there is no such thing as such per se. Is he trying to sort of, ingratiate himself in both camps? Which is very weird when you consider that Scotland is now actually a majority atheist country. So religion generally is a minority. And so he's trying to sort of appeal to both the Christians and the Muslims. In fact, I don't know why he doesn't call himself a Judeo-Christian Muslim and just have done with it. You know, he's pushing it that level, which seems very, very weird. But anyway, the tensions between the pair spilled over into last night's debate from the First TV head-to-head on Tuesday, when Miss Forbes had panned Mr Yousaf's ministerial record and suggested he should be sacked from his current health brief. And she used Tuesday's debate to accuse her fellow cabinet minister of overseeing failures across the country's transport, justice and NHS systems. I've covered this in a previous video. But last night, as you saw, Mr Yousaf berated Miss Forbes for trashing the SNP's record and handing ammunition to the party's opponents. We're only going to win independence, we're only going to win support for our cause if we work together as a team. Well, they are completely, as you see, completely incapable of acting as a team, and that is great news, because the more these three fight and squabble and rip each other apart, the more they rip the SNP apart, and the better that is for the future of Scotland. But anyway, getting back into it, Miss Forbes insisted that the SNP's opponents do fear me, she said, and warned Mr Yousaf, the future First Minister, is going to have to deal with a lot worse than we've been dealing with during this contest. And they're going to have to stand up to the UK government, they're going to have to stand up to the opposition, and they're going to have to be accountable to the people of Scotland who want answers, and they want to see competent delivery of results. Something they haven't seen, I suggest, in 15 years. So a quick look. So there she is, looking very truculent, isn't she? That old jaws set forward. She's spoiling for a fight. He looks... Don't you think he looks a bit tired? It's a man who's been in a position too long. He's had too much stress. He's seen too much failure in his life. His eyes are dead. And then underneath, there's a woman who doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't know why she's there. She doesn't know how she's got there. And she has no idea about what she's doing for the future. Anyway, Mr Yousaf pressured Miss Forbes over her views on terminations, with legislation set to be introduced at Holyrood that would introduce buffer zones outside clinics. Miss Forbes has repeatedly said she would support the principle of the legislation, but she refused to say if she felt termination was morally wrong during last night's debate. Actually, she did. I'm going to be unfair, because she actually did address it. And she said she feels in herself it is wrong and would not choose to do it for herself, but respects that other people have other views, and if they wanted to, she would not stop them. She said it was a personal matter. And I think that's probably the best answer that anyone can give, regardless. I'm not just going to pick on that. I think that's probably the best answer on something like that. It needs to be moral. It needs to be legal, but it needs to be... controlled a little, I think, rather than sort of blatant, but it needs to be available. That's my view. And anyway, getting on, Mr Yousaf also hinted he could refuse to be part of the Scottish government if Miss Forbes became First Minister. I don't think he's going to have an option with that. I think he's out. Kate will not pick someone who is a serial failure. Asked if he could serve a leader who voted on issues according to their religious faith, the Health Secretary said, "I am unashamedly progressive, and we have done well with our progressive agenda in the SNP." Well, yeah, you're saying it's progressive is a good thing, but it isn't necessarily always so. For example, allowing men to go into and enter women's safe spaces is progressive, but it's not good. It's a danger to women, and yet you voted for that. So you're highlighting something good that 50% of Scottish people reject immediately because they feel threatened by it. But hey, it's progressive, it must be good in your tiny failure mind. He said, if I was asked to be in a government, I would have to be comfortable that the progressive agenda that has won us so much support in the country, not just for the SNP but for independence, and that was something the next First Minister is going to have to continue. Miss Forbes insisted her religious beliefs would not influence her leadership. Meanwhile, former Minister Miss Regan pitched herself as the candidate that would push quickest for Scottish independence, saying this is the time for brave hearts, not faint hearts. It's a time for intelligence, which knocks you out, and Humza, to be fair. But it also isn't the time, she's saying, I want quick independence. She obviously doesn't know how to read polls, doesn't need to know how to read polling data, which shows that the support for independence is falling quickly. But she says, "Oh, Scotland needs to be independent as quickly as it can." Only if you want mass unemployment, misery, and poverty to spread wide and range across the land. Anyway, so round off there, come up and we'll finish this video. Now, if you do watch it, or you have watched it, do note how Christian Gurumurthy absolutely nails all three of them. He does pierce their armour on this. He questions them quite well, and they were very, very uncomfortable with some of the questions, and they didn't answer them. There was a lot of times where they were asked a question and they were just incapable of answering it. Particularly at the end, when Ash Regan was asked which of the two she would support, and it turns out that she would support neither. She just said me, me, me. Now, I think that is a very odd stance. For the woman who is destined to lose, she should have pitched at one of the two candidates. It's the toss of a coin. But at least if she picks the right one and says, oh, it'd be him or it'd be her, if that one wins, then chances are she will be brought back into the cabinet. It will improve her standing. Having alienated both of them, it doesn't matter which of them now wins. She's out. And of course, between Kate and Humza, whichever one of them wins, the other one is out. So like I say, you've got these three people fighting like crazy, each of them knowing that it is the end of their career. They'll go back, they'll be on the back benches or something, but it'll be the end of their high-flying career should they lose. It is, utterly delicious to watch. Knowing that one will win and two will be losers, but unfortunately all three of them are losers. It's just one of them will be a loser in a little while because they will lose the next election and then they'll be out. And as I say, it looks like Kate is the best candidate. If you were looking for who's best for Scotland out of the three, you've got to say Kate, but only in the short term. In the long term, it's Humza Yousaf, because he will make such a big dog's breakfast of this that it will destroy the SNP, and then whoever comes in next can at least have a go at repairing the ills of the last 15 years or 17 years by the time that happens. So yeah, you takes your money, pays your money and takes your pick, and you see who you get. But to be honest, yeah, like I say, there's three glittery turds. Which one will emerge victorious? I don't know. Now, I'll finish here, and I will say, do please hit the like button, because that we're getting into this political arena. YouTube gets a bit funny with it, and it doesn't promote political videos very well. But if you hit the like, then it affects the algorithm and it gets the YouTube video out there. It gets the message across. And also getting the message across, do hit the subscribe button. It absolutely helps. It makes our voice louder and we can keep an eye on those clowns, and we can keep mocking them and ridiculing them together. So yes, please do hit the like, do hit the subscribe, and that will do. Until next time, stay safe, stay well. It don't matter, they're all gonna get you, and goodbye.